have Nerima Wako Ojiwa, who's the director at Siasa Place. Good morning. We're also joined by Mark Bichachi, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us. We have Albert Amenya, who's going to be joining us from our INM studio. We're also joined by Frederick Okango, who's the Secretary General for Third Way Alliance. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We go straight to the dailies and we'll start off with the Standard. And first of all, I'll take this opportunity to say Happy New Month. Although according to the Standard, it looks like it may not be a very happy new month. February starts with the promise of chaos. And this chaos that the Standard is highlighting is in form of strikes. There's an expected strike which could take place, and this is by teachers, by nurses, and by civil servants. So let me start with you, Frederick. Is this something we ought to be worried about? Teachers always seem to be on strike one time or the other. But yeah, that's expected in February.
Thank you, Mark. I think we have talked about this several times, and I think if you read such headlines, Kenyans are not surprised anymore. I normally say a government that do not respect its civil servants is a government that should go home like yesterday. Because we have done budgeting. We have done revenue allocation and appropriation. And it means there were money that was allocated for such. How come today we are struggling and the unions are issuing strike notices? It means that there's somebody that is not doing his job or her job. And for me, what I would say is, while we know we are in hard economic times, while we know that the government could be struggling, they have refused to acknowledge that they are struggling so that the civil servants can know we need to cut our coat according to our cloth, our size. So what we are witnessing today is something that we have talked about, and what I would encourage the government to do, to listen to the civil servants, to offer what they can. Let's come to an agreement. Teachers have been going on strike every year. In fact, there's a time they went for strike, I think, in a year twice. But now, look, the nurses are joining in. And even now, other civil servants who are now the real government. So what are we trying to say? This is something that is going to cripple the services that should be offered to the people. And the moment the services are crippled, then that is a government that is stalling.
All right, Nerima Wako, anything that we need to be concerned about? Because again, there are negotiations that require to be done, and this could just be part of the negotiations.
I think the government needs to be more sensitive to other people, because I do agree with Fred. Yesterday, one of the headlines was MPs pushing for retirement packages to increase and up to the billions. And so that's something that it's quite hurtful, because the standard of living is very high. And if they continue to act in that manner, where we have legislators who are not even thinking about the people, and as put, civil servants who bear or carry this country on their arms, depending on the kind of work they do, because they deal with the health, with the children, when it comes to education, those are the sectors that the government should be truly concerned about. So if they continue to move toward insensitivity, then there will be difficult years ahead that we're talking about, especially for the president, who's pushing toward anti-corruption and pushing toward building a legacy. With these in line, it's going to be almost impossible.
It's going to damage that legacy. All right, Mark, are you worried about February?
No, because I'm Kenyan and we live from crisis to crisis, so I don't understand how we are particularly worried. That's how we've lived. Which year on record in the last 15 years has not had some form of strike?
That doesn't make it right, Mark.
No,
it doesn't mean that you should
your
accept
question
it.
was whether I was worried. You understand? I can't be worried about something that's the norm. However, is there an issue? Yes, there is an issue. There is an issue in the sense that there is a very big difference between the reality of what is needed for in terms of wages for our civil servants than what the government is paying. That is something that you cannot run away from. Whether that would be possible given two factors. One, the greed and self-focus of our budgetary institutions, and two, the amount of corruption that we celebrate and put ourselves through every year does not really allow the government a lot of wiggle room. In fact, beyond that, let's remember Eurobond 1 is due for payment this year. So clearly, I don't know what these guys are striking about. I don't know where the money is going to come from. Yeah, I'm not saying they don't have issues to strike about. They do. But I don't think realistically you can look at the budget and where we are and say, okay, fine, the government is going to give us an extra 500 million, an extra. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that these unions would better be served in sitting down with a cabinet secretary who's serious and then agreeing on a way forward. Because I don't really see where it's going to come from in a budget. Not to depress them, but I don't see it.
Okay, and well, the question also would be, there have been CBAs that have been agreed upon and signed, but they never seem to be actioned. They never seem to be followed through to the conclusion. Nerima, is that a sign that sometimes either there's too much pressure for the CBA to be signed and it's signed without a good plan to it, or is it just impunity really from the government?
It makes me think about the things that we have signed that have followed through. I think when it comes to implementation everywhere in this country, it is lacking. And not only that, when we think about the kind of agreements that were signed, I did agree with them, even including the doctor strike. I think there were a lot of issues that not only benefited doctors, but also people and patients themselves. So these are things that should be implemented. I think where we go wrong is when legislators or policymakers and those who are implementers, there's no form of synergy in terms of how do we set goals, how do we roll out plans, how is this going to work when we talk about budgeting, how are we going to do the phases, and that's an area that we struggle with. And even working and living in the US for a while, and the kind of goals that we would set from mid-term to long-term to evaluating to impact, we struggle with collecting data. So it's quite an issue. There are many loopholes to it, but I don't think it's something that cannot be resolved. I just think it's something that has to be looked at from different angles.
All right, and brace yourselves for February. According to the headline here, it could be a tough month when it comes to strikes, and that's from nurses, teachers, and civil servants. Let's look at other stories in the dailies. Page 4. We have obey my orders or leave. President now tells CSs. Very evidently angry president as he was on his way to Tanzania yesterday reading the riot act to CSs that either they toe the line or they shape up or ship out. Frederick, right direction in terms of ensuring that the Big Four agenda, first of all, is followed through, and secondly, a legacy that the president has to protect.
I think not even to ensure that the Big Four is achieved. Constitutionally, appointed state
Cabinet
officers,
secretaries.
not even cabinet secretaries, appointed state officer, any appointed state officer should not be political. And that is what the law says. And if you look at some of the members of cabinet who go to funerals, pick a microphone and start speaking like they're the real politicians, then I think they're derailing the president's agenda. That is a fact. Number two, the president has sent a clear message, and that message is take it or leave it. And he was targeting specific people. And for the first time, if you analyzed it, and communication experts like Mark Bichachi will tell you, the president was on a higher podium and his deputy was on a lower podium. It means that is authority that no one can question. In fact, it was not even an issue of negotiation. He said it, take it or leave it. And he spoke and gave the microphone to his deputy after. And the deputy repeated the exact words what the president said. That means this is not going to change. But if you go back to the orders, there were certain ministers who are reported, CSS who are reported to have defied the executive order. And the media reported that, they don't imagine that one of them would be their prefect. But listen, if it is the prerogative of the president to coordinate all government functions, and the Constitution allows him under Article 132 that he can delegate that to a specific cabinet secretary to achieve it, then so be it. So it means these cabinet secretaries who are rebelling today are either getting instructions from certain part of the government, or it's just open defiance. And that's something that we should deal with. If we want to deliver services to the people of Kenya, whether it is Big Four, whatever it is, then the cabinet secretaries should be individually and collectively accountable to the President of the Republic of Kenya.
All right, and I want to bring in Albert Amenya, who is in our INM studio in town. And following through on that, there are those who might argue that there's double speak, because we've also had the very CS, Dr. Matiang'i, who's now being referred to as the chief CS, basically involved in or engaged in political rallies where he was very, very categorical and very political, so to speak. So we'll wait to hear whether that's still going to be followed through. But Albert Amenya, your thoughts on the president's new stunt and basically ensuring or making it very clear that you either toe the line or you ship out?
Yeah, actually, we all know that the president is having his second term. And right now he can do anything without anybody questioning. He can exercise his authority fearlessly. When he was telling the CSS that they should obey Matiang'i, or whoever is uncomfortable should just get out and go. So the president was clear. And from where he was speaking, actually, the deputy, he was with the deputy, but the deputy was on a lower podium. So that confirms also that the president is in charge, and he means whatever he was saying.
All right, thank you very much. Bichachi, your thoughts on the president's, tone and even sound. He sounded very, very categorical, sounded very stern. It's like he meant business.
Well, he has to mean business, because if there's one thing that Uhuru Kenyatta has realized from his first term is that you cannot play politics with the development of a country, which is something that we've been so used to in this country. In fact, if you had the interview of Ferdinand Waititu, you would think his entire portfolio, he has one ministry called roads and the other ministry is called markets. And that's what we think. Kenyans are not at the place where we realize that it should get to the point that even if we voted for a chicken, our roads would still be built, because that's common sense. You understand? So the fact is that there is a lot of inertia within the rank and file of our political and class, in the sense that they want to play the politics that was there in the past. So you'll find CSs like Echesa who go to Western Kenya and have stone throwing matches with the senators down in Kakamega and places like that. So you ask yourself, when he's busy calculating how many stones to throw, who's calculating how many Olympians we need to send to the Olympics? You see, you cannot do those two things. If you become political, you have a political base. So will you then be representing the people who you want to run for governor or whatever, or will you be representing the interest of the nation? Number three, it seems that it is quite incompatible in this day and age to combine 2022 and what is happening now. Because if you start thinking about 2022, whoever you are, you start thinking about your village first. Because in any negotiation in Kenya, you start saying, my village mates, aka the Kamba, my village mates, the Luya, my village mates, this, are behind me. So if we become political, then the president's Big Four agenda falls to pieces. And you've seen when you become political about the fight against corruption, people start saying that a certain individual and his community is being targeted. So it's very clear that we cannot, as a country, continue to think about our development and to think about the fight against corruption and then still be political about it. It is not compatible. It cannot work. And if any CS is serious about their job, then they will drop their political hats and pick up their nationalist hats and become patrons of the handshake. And actually, I would advise them to act the way Raila Odinga acts today, because Raila Odinga, who's been the most political animal in our entire lives, has been the most tame politician we've had in the last 1 year. And that's what they need to do, because that's what we need. We need a more nationalist government.
All right, and talking about politics and what is happening on page 12, we have "Stop Mock Campaigns in My Name," says Ruto. Nerima, this of course, we've seen over time, especially in the last few months, there being camps that are being set up, and some of them claiming to speak on behalf of the deputy president. And there was a time, there was even a notion and a feeling and a narrative that the president and the deputy president may not be seeing eye to eye, because the president is busy pushing for the Big Four agenda, whereas the deputy president was felt to be pushing for 2022. But now he has come out and said, stop more campaigns and stop using my name. It's time to concentrate on purely the Big Four.
Interesting. You know, in politics, it's not what we see, but what we do. And I can't remember the particular law, maybe Mark does, but in the 48 laws of power, you always have the handman to do what you really want to do, the dirty work. You never do the dirty work as a leader. And I would say that the deputy president is one of those who is a strategist. He's brilliant when it comes to making plans or appearing what not to be. He knows how to play that game. So as much as he says here, stop doing these campaigns in my name, what he does is not what he says. That's the same way when we even saw, since we were talking about 1 year since the handshake and all that, people are still not even sure whether Kalonzo or Musalia Mudavadi were told not to go or not, or they were told not to go by Raila, or whether he showed. Yeah, and that's our politics today, where you cannot really trust what the politicians say, but what they do is something different.
But why don't we just take his words at face value? I mean, based on what he said yesterday with the president, basically concentrate on the Big Four agenda. Now he's come out through his spokesman to say that I am not interested in doing 2022 campaigns. We all want to concentrate on Big Four agenda. What makes you doubt his word?
Because he has never really openly said that I am interested in doing 2022 campaigns. He has openly said that he's for development. He has openly said, stop campaigning for me. He has. This is not the first time. But we will still see his followers, I would say, we would still see his camp going out, defending him, even when it was cases not to do with development, when it was cases of corruption. Every time they felt that they were pointing a finger at the deputy president, his people would always come up to defend him.
Okay.
So it's not the first time that he has said to stop. This he has been saying since
All
he
along.
went, since he entered the second term.
Frederick, in politics, they say it's not what the politician says, it's what they don't say that you need to listen to.
Very true. In fact, I am shocked that people are throwing arrows at the deputy president alone for having started the campaigns. This came from the video that was shot by a phone in West Pokot. And if you watch that video, it was a full force campaign. In fact, you'd imagine we are going to the ballot next week. But look at the wordings of David Mugonyi. If you read what David Mugonyi said, actually he dismissed it. He dismissed it like it is nothing. That is not their standard of campaign. But remember, when the president and Raila Odinga went to Kisumu, it was campaigns. What they were telling people, it was about 2022. In fact, they talked about the issue of the winner take it all. They talked about development. All those have been campaigns. The president has been in the front line campaigning. Raila Odinga has been the frontline campaigning. Deputy President Ruto has been the frontline campaigning. Mudavadi has been the frontline campaigning. So they cannot now start saying there's only one individual who is campaigning. And I want...
When you say you're campaigning, you mean for 2022?
For 2022. What are we campaigning
The president, Raila and...
Exactly. What I'm trying to say, the top political leadership in this country, whenever they are given a podium, they have used it to send a message that would be perceived to be for 2022. They have done it without bleaching. But look, the issue here is what Mugonyi wrote. I read it, and for once, I thought that Kenyans are being lied to. Because you see, if I'm using your name, Mike, to do something, then you should not wait. If you know you're not for it, you should not wait till the public, start making noise, then you tell your boys to stop. But if you know that whatever you are doing is right, then proceed. When the deputy president was going around launching projects, those rallies were full. And the message was, raundi tuko na nyinyi, bako kwa bako. You know, let us be serious. I think we cannot delink leadership and politics in Kenya. When the leaders say it is time to work, and the next minute they go to church and speak the political language, even in church, then we are not a serious country.
All right, I want us to have Albert Amenya weigh in on this before we possibly take a break in a short while. But Albert, your thoughts on this? Is the deputy president, through his spokesperson, being correct? I mean, or rather being honest, or is it doublespeak, do you think?
No, yes, I read the statement by Mugonyi, and the statement was very weighty and cautious, actually, especially when he mentioned the shenanigans. He was warning of the shenanigans. But I want to say that, politics in this country is very funny, because the deputy president has never come out categorically to say that maybe he's campaigning. I can say that the people who fear the deputy president, they fear him because they know that he is the main man in 2022. And nowhere has the deputy president ever gone to campaign. We have seen him launch projects here and there, but the people are riding on that notion, that agreement that after Uhuru Kenyatta, it is the deputy president who will take over. So these people are just uncomfortable with the deputy president because they know he is the main man in 2022. And you see, these people who are fighting the deputy president, these people actually are worried. When you look at this other side of the divide, the Raila side, the people have been actually hurling insults on deputy president, and the deputy president has nobody to respond to that fight. Actually, has nobody to defend him. Until recently, we saw Governor Stephen Sang of Nandi, when he responded once. In fact, he neutralized all of them. They are now all over making a lot of noise. They are uncomfortable with Stephen Sang because he responded. And yet, all along, they have been speaking.
So, Amenya, are you saying that you have not seen the deputy president's peoples or the camp that represents the deputy president in campaign mode? Are you saying that so far he has not alluded to anything in regards to campaigns of 2022?
Yes, I can say that because if, they say that not all your friends are genuine friends. Some of the people who the deputy president, and I've said this before, some of the people who the deputy president surrounds himself with are not genuine. Others can, like what we saw the other day, actually, it was like a full campaign. We saw all the banners and everything. It was actually a campaign. And whoever does...
Who's campaigning? You've just said that they're not campaigning, then you say they're campaigning. Who exactly are you referring to in this case?
That is what I'm telling you, that we saw they were purporting to campaign for deputy president. And that is very dangerous. When people do that to you, they are trying... Maybe these are the people who are there to undo him. But I don't think the deputy president has ever campaigned anywhere. These are they are just fearing. They are riding on that notion.
All right,
Yeah.
Albert. I think we'll pause it right about there, and when we come back, we'll look at certain things in regards to the week that was. But we'll start it right there because I can see Mark Bichachi literally just wanting to jump in and say something there. I don't know whether it's in agreement with Albert.